right now. So, all right, and you should be getting a screen acknowledgement about that. Okay, well, good morning again. Because this meeting is being recorded, we just ask that when we get to the live question A that you speak clearly and please identify yourself. And you may be asked to repeat your question just to make sure that everybody hears that and we get a good recording of it. So please don't be offended if we ask you to repeat. So our purpose this morning is to address questions that are related to ESSER requirements, also known as SR3 and allowable uses, to provide all of you out there information about the two required district plans. So the ESSER is different than its previous iterations in the fact that it requires two district plans that be in place before funds are allocated. And we'll talk more about each one of these today. The Safe Return to In-Person Instruction and Continuity of Service Plan, that's due on the 24th of June. Happens to be my birthday. The develop and submit the OPI district ESSER plan, and that is due August 24th. But we will dig deeper into each of those in our conversation today. So our format is going to be, as I mentioned earlier, part one. We will go ahead and kind of plow through some questions that you have been asking us throughout the week. Mindy and I both stay very busy with your questions, and we're happy to do that. But we're going to highlight some of the common questions we've received this week. Then part two, we'll switch over to live questions to be answered. If you have questions as we go along or need clarification, certainly you are welcome to submit your questions in the chat window, and maybe Mindy and maybe Tracy, if you can help monitor the chat box a little bit for me. And so if you have any clarifying questions, if you want to ask a question about a topic that we're on right there, you're welcome to come off mute and interject as well. So, all right. So let's introduce the team that is working with the ESSER funds. First of all, my name is Jeff Kirksey. I'm the ESSER program manager. I'm the individual that is charged with communicating with you as you think about your allowable uses. I'm also the person who's reviewing your e-grant applications, any of your capital expenditure pre-approval requests. I'm the person. And then the others that are in here in the room with us today, I might just ask if you would take a quick minute just to briefly introduce yourself. So let's start with you, Mindy, my partner in crime.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mindy Aspelson. I am the program analyst for the ESSER and EANS programs. And I work on the e-grants end of it with all the technical design and support. And I know most of you are used to coming to me for the ESSER questions, but now that we have Jeff, yay, I've been sending all those questions over to him. But if you're not sure who to call, we'll send you to where you need to be. And just good morning, everyone, and thanks for everybody being so pleasant when we talk to them about issues.
Go for it, Tracy.
Good morning, everyone. Tracy Mosman. I'm Chief Program Officer here at the agency and sit behind the scenes on some of the leadership teams that are working to make all of this happen for you. So welcome.
Right. All right, thank you. I think that is the OPI crew that is on right now. You can see other members of our team that we work very closely with. Dr. Mergel, Julie Mergel, will be joining towards the end. She's actually in another meeting right now, but she will jump in and join and should be present when we get to the live question and answer session. So, all right. Before we get into questions, just want to reiterate some key dates. Just remember that we are doing these weekly Q&A sessions every Tuesday in the month of June. You know that because you're here, but let your colleagues know that we still have 2 left in the month of June. It's every Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Today is also the Education Advocates monthly partnership meeting that's happening. That's actually happening right now. June 18th is the final day to submit cash requests for June payments on all federal programs, including ESSER. So if you have payments particularly on ESSER 1 or ESSER 2, you can submit cash request by the 18th if you would like that to be processed within this fiscal year. June 24th, as mentioned earlier, is when districts will submit, make publicly available their return to in-person instruction and continuity of service plan. You will be posting that on your school websites. If you don't have a school website, talk to me. We can figure out some other ways to get the word out there. June 24th and through 25th, the Virtual Montana Education Summit is happening. And we will be covering ESSER topics and many more. So you should have received an invitation to be involved in that process. If you haven't received an invitation and you'd like to be involved in the summit, please email me and let me know, and I'll make sure we get you the information. Finally, for this slide, July 1st, 2020, OPI will be making available to you a district ARP ESSER plan template. It's going to be really important that you follow the OPI template because it will be the only template that is actually going to be accepted for your ARP ESSER plan. The reason for that is there's some really specific information that the the Department of Ed is asking for, and we want to make sure that that's collected uniformly. But don't fear, that's on the way. We're working on it right now, and we'll have that available to you by the 1st of July. So we will be doing some ARP ESSER webinars happening in July. We'll be sending more information out about that the 13th, 20th, and the 27th. And then August 3rd through the 5th, we're going to do a regional summit for schools in comprehensive status. So there'll be designated time for school leadership teams to meet with, plan, and coordinate programming funds for Title I, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3, Impact Aid, and school improvement supports. August 24th, districts must submit their ARP ESSER plan to OPI through Teams. We'll cover that in more depth in the Q&A a little bit here. And September 1st, 2021 is the due date to complete the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3 applications in eGrants. So there is a quick overview of the timeline. These slides will be available on the OPI website. This timeline is also kept up to date on the OPI ESSER website, and so you can certainly look there for review. Just a quick review of the 3 different types of elementary and secondary school emergency relief funding that have been authorized by Congress. So we've had 3 rounds. We have already distributed ESSER 1, that came through the CARES Act. ESSER 2, a lot of our LEAs right now are applying for those funds, and some are even making their initial kind of cash request on the ESSER 2 funds. That was funded through CARISA, the CARISA Act. And ESSER 3, which we'll spend most of our time talking about today, is ESSER 3, was funded through the American Rescue Plan. So And then, which we won't spend a lot of time talking about, but my colleagues in school finance will be putting out more information around the EANS funds. Those are emergency assistance for non-public schools. Okay, just want to hit a couple of high-level things before we get into the Q&A details. So the requirements for the ESSER3 funds are published in the Federal Register and also outlined by the department in the ESSER and Gear FAQ document. Both of those are available on the OPI website. OPI has developed an FAQ document to provide LEAs information about the grant, including eligibility and grant requirements. That's also on our website. And an SR3 guidance document is on our website. So a few good places to get a more in-depth information. We will just submit the disclaimer here, similar to the FAQ document that was issued by the Department of Ed. The contents of this document do not have the force of law and effective law, and are not meant to bind the public anyway. The information is subject to change as additional information is provided by US Ed. So, okay. So some of the key topics that we will be copying today, that we will be answering today, are details on safe return to in-person instruction, continuity of service, and district ARP ESSER plans. Getting lots of questions around construction and capital requests, so we'll spend some time chatting about that as well too. Allowable uses relative to staff pay, and the new maintenance of equity requirements. So I think, Mindy, we are ready to dive into questions. Just so you don't have to hear my voice the whole time, Mindy has offered to be the question answer. I will question asker, and then I will answer. But go for it, Mindy.
Okay, so Jeff, what is the timeline for SR3 submission?
Yeah, so there are 3 key deadlines for districts to be aware of. The first is that June 24th, 2021, districts must make publicly available the return to in-person instruction and continuity of service plans. We'll dig in a little bit more of what the plan actually constitutes. Second date, so if you think of SR3, it's really, there are 3 phases to the application process. First is the posting of that safe return plan to your school website. The second is August 24th. That's actually when you submit the uniform art ESSER template through OPI. And we're actually going to use Teams to collect that information. That's why it's really important that you use the template that we provide. And as I mentioned earlier, that template is going to be available on the 1st of July. And then the third major deadline is September 1st, and that is actually when both the ESSER2 and the ESSER3 applications are due in the eGrant system.
Is OPI providing a template for safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of service plan?
Yeah. The answer to this is no, we're actually not providing a template for the safe return of in-person instruction in continuity of service plan. And we actually recommend that you build on your existing plans. Many of you had to submit plans to the governor, and likely you can use these plans. You just need to update them and make sure that they are relevant and up to date. So this includes health and safety plans developed in collaboration with local departments of health. You may, as I said, have existing remote learning plans and reopening plans submitted to the governor, or other strategic plans that encompass aspects of these requirements. Districts should consider using those previously developed plans to meet relevant requirements for the of the federal assurances and add additional elements such as stakeholder involvement as necessary to meet the federal expectations. So, so we're not providing a plan because we really believe you can build on the good work that you've already done. So is OPI providing a template for the district ESSER plan? And I think this is probably now the third time I've said this in this presentation, but yes, the OPI is requiring districts to use a uniform template. LEAs must submit an ESSER plan to OPI through teams, terms of employment, accreditation, and master schedules. The district ESSER plan template will be open July 1st and close on August 24th in Teams. The OP will also continue to release information on the OPI website under the ESSER information page, so LEAs can begin work in anticipation of the opening of the template in Teams.
Okay, Jeff, is it a requirement for a district to adopt CDC guidance as part of the development of the return to in-person instruction and continuation of service plan?
No, the interim final rule clarifies that the requirement does not mandate that an LEA adopt the CDC guidance, but only requires that the LEA describe in its plan, to the extent to which it is adopted, the key prevention and mitigation strategies identified in the guidance. So you can use the guidance as a tool, but you do not have to adopt it as your guidance.
Is a return to in-person instruction and continuity of service plan required for all LEAs, even those who have already returned to in-person instruction?
Yes, all LEAs are required to develop a plan or update an existing plan for the safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of service, consistent with statutory requirements of the ARP Act and the interim federal regulations, the IFR, interim final rules, sorry. If any LEA has already returned students to 100% full-time in-person instruction, its plan should focus on its current and future activities to keep students and staff safe and ensure continuity of services.
Will there be a special reporting requirement for ARP ESSER3 grants?
So the Department of Ed has not yet released the reporting requirements. However, we should expect reporting on use of funds from US Ed as well as OPI or both. This is one of the key reasons for the uniform template for the LEA ARP ESSER plan.
Question, what do the different allocations in e-grants mean, such as ESSER base, school district supplemental, special needs?
Yeah, so you'll notice that in e-grants, you might have funding allocations in 3 different buckets. And we've been getting lots of different questions about what's the difference between those. The first, the ESSER base allocation, is the funding directly from the federal government that's based on Title I funding calculations. If you have a school district supplemental, it's also federal funding, but it was distributed directly to the state. OPI worked to ensure each district through ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 received funding. And so so the state actually used its allocation of federal dollars to invest in schools and districts. And then finally, special needs. All of these have similar allowable uses, but in addition, for special needs, there must this request must benefit special needs populations.
Why am I only seeing 2/3 of my ESSER 3 allocation in e-grants?
Yeah. Oh, we are getting this question a lot, aren't we, Mindy? People want to know what we did with with their money. So Montana has only received 2/3 of the ESSER3 funds from USAID to date. So that's why if you actually were to do the math, you'd see that you are short a third currently. So once the remaining third is allocated to the state from USAID, we will adjust the allocations, and then you will do a budget amendment to spend the rest of the funds in e-grants. We expect to receive the final 1/3 after the state ESSER3 plan is approved. So, and we did submit that on the day it was due on June 7th. So we now wait for USAID to tell us when it's approved and to send those remaining funds.
Well, this is a good question with a longer than is down there answer. So what is the guidance on construction costs?
Okay, so we're gonna go real high level and point you to where the guidance can be found, and then we're gonna dig into it a little bit. So the ESSER and Gear FAQ addresses uses of ESSER and Gear funds for construction, and you'll specifically want to look at section B6 and B7. That ESSER and Gear FAQ is on the OPI ESSER website.
Is construction an allowable use of ESSER funds?
Construction is authorized under Title VII of the ESSA impact aid, and therefore is allowable for an allowable use of Gear and ESSER funds under the following sections of the CARES Act and the CARISA Act, as well as the ARP Act. So you can see the specific sections there. However, the department discourages LEAs from using ESSER. The Department of Ed discourages LEAs from using ESSER and Gear funds for new construction. This use of funds may limit an LEA's ability to support other essential needs or initiatives. Remodeling, renovation, and new construction are often time-consuming, which may not be workable under the shorter timeline associated with the ESSER and Gear funds. These types of activities are also subject to several additional federal requirements.
What are the federal requirements for approved construction projects?
Yeah. Approved construction projects such as remodeling, renovation, and new construction must comply with applicable uniform guidance requirements, Davis-Bacon prevailing wage requirements, and all of the department's applicable regulations regarding construction. They're at 34 CFR sections 76.600, and then the 75 through 600 to 618. Some of the relevant Part 75 requirements that must be considered before a new construction project takes place. And we'll go over those in a minute.
So why do we need to get pre-approval?
Yeah. So the Department of Ed requires the state to ensure that all grant stipulations related to the use of ESSER funds for capital expenditures are disclosed and understood prior to an LEA starting a capital project or purchasing equipment. The USAID also requires the state to review these potential capital expenditures to determine allowable use.
How do I get pre-approval for capital expenditures for ESSER 2 and 3?
Yeah. So all capital expenditures that meet state capital expense thresholds must be pre-approved before the project can commence or equipment can be purchased. You can find the pre-approval form located in eGrants on the property and equipment budget page, so the category 7 budget page, or 700 rather, or you can follow follow this link directly. So, and it is a Google form. It's not overly complex. And if you have any questions about it, happy to talk you through it.
When can an LEA start the procurement for construction projects or capital purchases?
Yep. So once pre-approval has been granted from OPI, districts can proceed by following local procurement processes and all federal regulations for construction and capital purchases.
Can ARP ESSER funds be used for new construction?
Yes, although USAID is discouraging it, you still can, provided that that you get pre-approval and that all the federal guidelines are met in the project and that the new construction meets the primary purpose of the ESSER funding.
Can ARP ESSER funds be used for renovations?
Yes, provided that the renovations meet the primary purposes of the ESSER funds, which, as we should all know by now, is to prepare for, prevent, or respond to COVID-19.
Can the deferred maintenance of a district be paid for with ESSER funds?
The answer to this question is no. An LEA may only use ESSER funds for any allowable expenditure incurred after, on or after March 13th, 2020. Although sometimes renovation projects that meet the needs of COVID response, renovation needs that meet the prepare, prevent, and respond to, sometimes there is overlap between those renovation needs and past capital needs, or past, deferred maintenance needs. So there is some wiggle room on that, but generally the need has to be identified on or after that March 13th date.
I just want to jump in here, if you don't mind, Jeff, and just say that as a former ADA coordinator, I spent a lot of time trying to fix renovations that didn't take into account ADA qualifications. And especially if you're doing more than one building that has different building dates or last renovation dates, they can get quite sticky. So I just wanted to add that, Jeff.
Yeah, fair enough.
Are educator and staff salaries of allowable expenditures Are educator and school salaries allowable expenditures under ARP ESSER? This question has me so upset. I can't even read it.
Yeah, no, it's because, and this is a change from previous guidance that we have given, because we originally had kind of a narrow understanding of that, and then the Fed has actually broadened it. And so the answer is yes, an LEA may use ESSER funds to stabilize and support the educator and staff workforce, and to support the conditions that will allow schools to return to in-person instruction. This may include using funds to pay teacher and staff salaries to avoid layoffs. Funds may also be used to address educator shortages exacerbated by the pandemic by hiring new teachers, including expanding student access to a well-prepared and diverse educator workforce. So that D1 section of the FAQ, section D in the ESSER Gear FAQ, is a really good read if you're thinking about paying educators and staff salaries using ESSER dollars.
I just want to reiterate too that this is a change from what we have been telling you. So what are examples of strategies that could be employed to stabilize and support the educator workforce include?
Yeah, so here's a few examples. Supporting partnerships with educator preparation programs to expand opportunities for extensive clinical experiences to teaching candidates, including leveraging candidates to provide additional support to students and address the impact of lost instructional time as students return to in-person instruction, providing ongoing support to recruit, hire, and retain a diverse school staff, including through high quality induction and mentoring programs, or offering supplemental financial support to educators who commit to work in a high needs field or school for a minimum number of years, example, 4 years. And then just some continued examples. I won't make you read the question again, Mindy.
It's okay.
Providing teachers professional learning opportunities on strategies for the effective use of technology for remote, hybrid, and accelerated learning, or creating and or supporting educational assistance programs that pay off student loans on behalf of staff as a component of recruitment and retention efforts in response to the pandemic. In using these funds, an LEA should consider ways that will build short and long-term capacity and be sustained after the fund is no longer available. Evidence-based approaches to stabilize the educator workforce are further described in Volume 2 of the department's COVID-19 handbook, available at the website below.
May an LEA use ESSER and Gear funds to hire additional health support staff?
Yes, funds may be used to hire new counselors, nurses, social workers, and other health support staff to help students and staff with their emotional and physical well-being and help students and staff deal with the impact of the COVID pandemic. An LEA should consider how to use the funds in ways that will build its short and long-term capacity and be sustained after the funding is no longer available.
May an LEA use ESSER and Gear funds to provide premium pay or other additional compensation for teachers, principals, and other school personnel, including school nutrition staff and custodians?
Yes, premium pay must be reasonable and necessary, consistent with 2 CFR 200 430 F, and given pursuant to an established plan, which could be established in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, consistent with applicable collective bargaining agreements and other relevant policies and requirements. So, and this is also different than what we had previously been communicating.
What is maintenance of equity?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked.
Anytime.
The U.S. Ed released guidance just recently on June 9th for state and local entities as they implement these new requirements. Here is the link to the Maintenance of Equity FAQ. Section 2004 of the ARP Act includes new maintenance of equity provisions that are a condition for state and local ed agencies to review funds under ARP ESSER. In addition, Appendix A includes information on baseline and initial maintenance of equity data that each state must submit by July 30th of 2021 for fiscal year 2022. So it covers both state and local level of maintenance of equity requirements, and the maintenance of equity requirements apply to fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023.
What are the state MO equity tests?
Yeah, so there are two: high need and highest poverty LEAs. So high need LEAs in fiscal years 22 and 23, States cannot disproportionately reduce per pupil state funding to high need LEAs. High need LEAs are LEAs with highest percentage of economically disadvantaged students based on SAIPE data provided by the Census Bureau, or delivered or derived data for LEAs not on the census list, and collectively serve at least 50% of the state's total enrollment. And what are the highest poverty LEAs? In fiscal year 22, 23, and 23, states cannot reduce per pupil state funding on its highest poverty LEAs below what they received in fiscal year 19. Highest poverty LEAs are LEAs with highest percentages of economically disadvantaged students and collectively serve at least 20% of the state's total enrollment.
For those of you that have your chat box up, Julie has put in links to explain the maintenance of equity more, and also some of the links for the ESSER Gear FAQs, the most up-to-date one.
Great. Thanks, Julie.
Well, let's see. Will the maintenance of equity apply to LEAs? How will the maintenance of equity?
So maintenance of equity applies to all LEAs that receive ARP ESSER funds, except for those with less than 1,000 students, only one school, or only one school per grade span. In fiscal years 22 and 23, LEAs may not reduce per pupil state and local funding to high poverty schools more than the total reduction in per pupil funding to all schools, and per pupil FTEs to high poverty schools more than the total reduction in per pupil FTEs in all schools.
What are high poverty schools?
So high poverty schools are not the same as Title I or Title I eligible schools. High poverty schools are schools in the highest quartile of schools served by the LEA based on the percentage of economically disadvantaged students.
We have open questions now, but what I'd like to do, we did get a question in the chat box. So Jeff, I'd like to read that to you.
Yes.
If a district's ESSER3 application is submitted and approved before 6/30/21, will we be able to do a cash request before 6/30/21?
Before 6/30/20 for ESSER3, the answer to that is no, because the entire ESSER plan will need to be completed, including the ESSER, the LEA ESSER ART plan, as well as the safe return to schools. So, and actually the last day to do a cash request in the fiscal year is actually this Friday.
Rebecca, did I read that correctly, or do you need to clarify that question? All right, well, let's start with the open question session then. Anyone have questions? You must be good, Jeff. No questions.
Mindy, can you read that last question one more time, please? That was in the chat box about using funds.
Okay. Hang on, I just got to get, my mouse doesn't always work with my Oh, Jeff, can you go back up to the
Yep.
question? I'm sorry. I can't, my mouse won't respond.
Let me see. I'm just, okay. The question comes from Rebecca Rhodes. And if a district submits their ESSER3 application is submitted and approved before 6/30, 2021, will we be able to do a cash request before 6/30, 2021?
And Jeff, just to add, Rebecca did put in the message box, is the question revolved around how to code their summer school expenses.
So I do want to just kind of clarify that, you guys. So funds may be used for allowable activities from March 13th, 2020 with approved pre-award through September 30th of 2023. The tidings amendment will then apply and the LEAs will have the standard 12-month carryover period through September 30th of 2024. So I saw that Rebecca was asking about summer school. So yes, if you are engaging in summer school and paying salaries for teachers to teach the summer school or materials or all of the pieces that you are doing, these funds are allowable activities from all the way back from March 13th of 2020. And so that's an allowable use. So I just want to kind of clarify that a little bit. So can ESSER funds be used for summer school in June of 2021? So Rebecca, the answer is yes, they can be.
Yes. Yeah.
I hope that clarifies, Rebecca.
So it's actually a yes and a no question for you, Rebecca. So yes, you can use the funds. Will you be able to do a cash request now to have those funds available? And the answer to that is likely is no. But you can certainly be reimbursed for those funds using the ESSER3 dollars because that is an allowable use. So does that make sense, everybody?
And what Rebecca clarified too is we can normally do a cash request after 6/16, but it won't get the money until August, which makes bookkeeping easier.
Oh.
So basically, yes. I mean, you
Yes.
can turn in the cash request, and then if it's not by the June 16th deadline, then you would get paid on the next round of payment, which comes out in August.
I get it. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying all that, Rebecca. Yeah, and Julie and Mindy and everybody else.
Do we have a
Jeff,
call?
I did want folks to know that later today, information will be coming out to superintendents from the desk of the superintendent regarding the question, are LEAs required to implement a mask mandate in exchange for receiving ESSER3 funds? And the answer to that is no. ESSER3 does not require schools to implement mask mandates. They must only address the extent to which they are adopting policies on the CDC's safety recommendations. So please know that that information will be coming out. That's been through the lawyers to take a look at to be sure we're clear on that messaging. So that messaging will be coming out today. So please know that superintendents should be receiving a letter today from the superintendent of instruction regarding that particular piece.
Thank you. Thanks, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Can you give us the Google link again?
Yes, I can do that right now. I'll drop it in. I will drop it here in the chat. Let me pull it up really quick. There it is. It's a long one. But that's the Google form for pre-approvals, capital expenditures that need pre-approval. And if you can't remember what the state thresholds are, no worries. That is embedded right in the application, in the pre-approval application. So you will see that and be able to make some determinations about what you need pre-approval for.
And Jeff, how caught up are you on reading applications?
Yeah, so so with ESSER2 applications, I am pretty caught up. I am up to, I think I'm up to June 11th. So my goal was to try to be as caught up as possible on ESSER2 funds coming up to this June 18th cash request deadline. And so if you haven't heard from me and you need to hear from me before the 18th, feel free to shoot me an email. Just ask me the status, and I will. What's my slide navigation? Oh, here is my email address is right here, jeffrey.kirksey@mt.gov. Just a couple things want to highlight here. We do have a lot of good resources that are available on the OPI website. So if you go to opi.mt.gov and just scroll down to 2 buttons below the superintendent's picture and click the Find ESSER information, that will really connect you to a lot of very relevant information that can be helpful to you. Including an up-to-date timeline of due dates and processes that you need to be aware of. We will also make a recording of this session available on the OPI webpage, and then the FAQs will be updated weekly and posted to the OPI web page as well. And we do love to get your questions in advance. And so if you have questions that you'd like answered in this venue, we ask that you would submit those questions to me, jeffrey.kirksey@mt.gov, by close of business each Friday, because we discuss those questions every Monday morning and get our FAQ ready for our Tuesday morning sessions. And just so you know, the weekly FAQ sessions will be held through Zoom like we are right now, and the link and dial-in numbers will be the same each week. All that information is also available on the OPI website. So if you have colleagues that you think would benefit from this, pass it, share the love and pass it around. So. All right, any last questions before we conclude for the day?
Is the cash request due by 6/18?
It is 6/18, so that is a change. We just extended it out a couple more days just so we give each of you a little more time to get in your funding request. So particularly those of you that were wanting to draw down on ESSER2, and I was still reviewing ESSER2 grant applications. So we wanted to build in just a couple more days that you could have to do that. So. Yes, the slides will be available on the website, as will the recording. So thanks for the question, Sheila. All right. All right, everyone. Well, if you do have other questions that come up, feel free to send those to me. My email address is there, jeffrey.kirksey@mt.gov. I'll also write in the chat here too my phone number. If you'd like to give me a call, you're welcome to do that. that is my direct line. So feel free to call me with any questions you have. All right. Anything else, Dr. Mergel?
No, thank you, Jeff. I guess, between a potato farmer and a miner from Anaconda, one from Townsend, one from Anaconda with Jays, we're here for you. We're here to do whatever we can in funding and programming. We have a great team here at the Montana Office of Public Instruction working on this to support you in whatever ways we can. So please know we're here for you. We're continuing to stay in touch with, releases from the U.S. Department of Education in a timely fashion, and trying to get that out to you guys and turn that over as quickly as possible. So be looking for information on our website. Just continually check back in there. That's where we're really pushing a lot of information out. And like I said, be looking for a new release out today as well later about more information. And so we appreciate you taking time today, and we will post this link as soon as we get it recorded and converted over and have those slides available for you on that website as well. So thanks, Jeff. Although, I think a miner is better than a potato farmer, but
Hey, we need both. All right. Well, thanks everyone. We'll stop recording, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place.